Hello, and welcome to Recovering Boldly with Quest Center. I must admit, it has been a little while since I've been able to upload, but I'm excited to be back. This is a space where we celebrate real stories of resilience, healing, and transformation. Each episode, we'll talk with inspiring guests who share their journeys navigating mental health challenges, addiction, chronic pain, and more, offering honest insight and celebrating the courage it takes to reclaim hope and live boldly as your authentic self. A bit of background on Quest Center. Quest is a nonprofit health center based in Portland, Oregon, with a mission to provide integrative healthcare services, community, and education to all people seeking a wellness-focused approach to living and dying. Our programs in HIV services, substance use recovery, chronic pain management, mental health, acupuncture, and holistic medical care recognize that each person has a unique journey to healing. In addition to offerings like individual and group therapy, our programs take an integrative approach to wellness, including elements such as peer support, wellness movement, nutrition, and at the heart of it all, community. If you'd like to learn more about any of our services, please visit our website at www.quest-center.org. I am really looking forward to introducing you to today's guest, who I've had the pleasure of getting to know better these past couple of months. She is a wonderful speaker, and it comes through so clearly how passionate and driven she is by her work in HIV education, prevention, and community building. So I'm very excited, and I also just want to give a little highlight of an upcoming event that we will be hosting here at Quest Center. If you live in Portland, if you are new to the area, if you're curious about any resources around HIV services, we will be hosting a resource fair and mocktail happy hour here at Quest on June 26th. It's a Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. So it's going to be a lot of fun, kind of like a social happy hour with some food and mocktails and community. So we would love to see you there. And without further ado, let's dive in.
So thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you. So my name is Vanessa. I use she, her pronouns. And let's see, you asked me what I do, my title. So
Yes.
I am the HIV community liaison for Gilead Sciences for the Pacific Northwest. I have a 4-state territory. They're adding another state and a half for me. So I'm the only community liaison with 5-state territory, but I'll have pretty soon. Well, maybe. We're going through an expansion, and so
Nice.
they're expanding other places, and they expanded my region, but
Okay.
not the people in my region. So there's still one of me. I'm part of a commercial sales team, so I talk about HIV treatment and prevention, but I also talk about like what it's like to live with HIV and HIV and mental health. I talk about trauma-informed care and protocol implementation. I have a huge suite of things that I talk about.
What is
But
the new state that got added to your
Montana.
Montana? Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So and you're currently Oregon, Washington,
Idaho and Alaska.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I just had Boise and Coeur d'Alene, and they just added the entire state. So
Wow.
but the entire state of this expansion doesn't go in until July. So
Okay,
I have
okay.
some time, but
Yeah.
yeah, so 5 states.
Wow.
I'm on the road like 98% of the time. So when I take vacations, I just stay at home because it's like a vacation for me to not go anywhere. So.
Yeah. Well, can you tell me a little bit about what brought you into the work that you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been HIV positive for 10 years. I was in the Peace Corps in South Africa I joined the Peace Corps actually at like 34. So I was a midlife lifer at Peace Corps. Mostly people go into Peace Corps right after college or like after retirement or during retirement. We had a cohort of 46 people that dwindled. I think we left. Yeah. Well, I think the Peace Corps is 27 months.
Okay.
And I think at the 27-month mark, we had like 12 people left because people think that the Peace Corps is like the army, right? Where you go in and you can't leave. The thing about Peace Corps is that when you're done, you can be done. You say, I don't want to be here anymore, and they have 3 days to get you out of country.
Yeah.
So you can early terminate at any time.
Interesting.
So I went to South Africa in the Peace Corps. I went as a teacher because I'm a teacher by trade. I was
Nice.
an elementary school teacher in Vegas in the early aughts,
Okay.
and stopped teaching
Yeah.
and then worked for my family for a while. And I was like, I don't really know what to do with my life.
Hmm.
And my mom was like, why don't you look into Peace Corps again? Because I had originally looked into it in the early, like in the late 90s.
Hmm.
And on their website in the late 90s, uh, they had this questionnaire. And one of them was, can you live without electricity for 2 years? And I was basically married to my hair dryer and my curling iron at the time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no electricity? Like, absolutely not. But at 34, I was like, I'm ready for an adventure. And I got sub-Saharan Africa
Okay.
as my area. So I went to South Africa, which I was stoked about. And
Nice.
the second day I was there, I had a meeting with my assistant country director, and she was like, "Why South Africa?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, I couldn't pick it because this was when you couldn't pick. Now you can pick where you want to
Oh,
go."
I'm curious.
I know, right? Like you can pick, I think, up to 3 different places.
Okay.
Oh, this is all
And then
about
I'll
Peace Corps now,
choose
but
one. No, I'm interested. Yeah.
but I mean, anyone can go at any time. So
Hmm.
people are like, "Oh, I've always wanted to do that." I'm like, "Just do it."
Yeah.
They give you a stipend, which is equal to the amount of money that people around you make.
Okay.
So I didn't make the same amount of money as fellow teachers I was around. I made the same amount of money that the villagers in my village
Oh,
made.
wow.
So it was very, and your room is paid for by
Hmm.
Peace Corps.
Hmm.
You have a bed and a wardrobe that they give you, and then everything else you have to buy yourself. So you're given a stipend monthly. Um, and then also what Peace Corps used to do, I don't know if they do this anymore, but they used to put money away in a US bank account for you monthly.
Oh, interesting.
So depending on when you early terminate, you get that money. I don't know if you get it if you early terminate, but when you finish service, you get that money as like re-entry money into
Okay.
America. And then I actually extended a third year. So I taught
Okay.
for 2 years and then I extended a third year because I was in a
Mhm.
relationship with this guy. And I really wanted to see where it would go. And
Mhm.
I was like, my astrologer before I had gone to Peace Corps was like, you're gonna meet the love of your life in Peace Corps. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like I really
Yeah.
wanted to be partnered and in a relationship. And I was like, I have to see this through and see if
Mhm.
this is a thing. And it ended up not being a thing.
Ugh, bummer.
But I did leave Peace Corps with the love of my life, which is HIV. I left with my HIV diagnosis.
Oh, that's very
So,
cool.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a different way of looking at the love of your
Totally.
life. But I think, from my HIV diagnosis and through the last 10 years that I've worked through this, I've worked through it through work.
Hmm.
So I got home, I started work right away. I had a couple of weeks to just sort of reorient, and then I
Hmm.
went in and started work and sort of had to wrap my head around like having this HIV diagnosis and what it was like.
Hmm.
Um, and then I ended up going to grad school. I had
Oh,
already
okay.
applied to grad school at UW. I wanted to get a master's to do what I was doing in Peace Corps, but actually get paid money to do
Hmm.
it instead of be
Sure.
a volunteer. And the HIV diagnosis sort of put that on its head. I still knew I wanted to get a master's, but I really wanted to go into like HIV policy. And I was living in Bellingham at the time, which is in Northwest
Hmm.
Washington. And I got accepted to UW. And I was like, well, when I make it to Seattle, I'll open a nonprofit for people living with HIV. And then I got to Seattle and I was like, oh, there's like 15 of these. And I'm like, oh, this
Gotcha.
is not new,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so I had to sort of wrap my head around what I wanted to do. And
Hmm.
I was in getting a public administration degree. And I thought, well, I really want to get into HIV policy. So I talked to my director at the school, and she said, I don't really know anything about HIV. You're probably going to have to get a master's of public health, and that'll be an extra year of school. And I was like, listen, I have been poor for so long. I cannot pay for an extra year of school just because I want to do HIV work. Like I have this.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go to school to learn about it. And so she hooked me up with this woman that was working at the Center for AIDS Research at UW and who had also gone through the program that I was in. And she was like, you can join our cab. And so I joined their community action board.
Hmm.
And I was sitting at home and I was on like Husky Jobs and I typed in HIV AIDS and this student assistant position came up and it was a student assistant position for the cab.
Oh, funny.
And so I reached out to the cab manager and I was like, Meredith, like, do you know anything about this? And she said, this is for my assistant position, but you're totally overqualified. And I was like, I need a job. I will wash the floor if I have to, just
Mm-hmm.
please. So I became her assistant. And 3 weeks later, she called me and she was like, I got a job at the Gates Foundation. I'm leaving. And I was like, what?
What?
Like, I just got this job. Like,
Right.
what is happening? And so I talked to the director and she said, well, I'm glad to put you in as an interim cab manager until we can find someone if we can have, this. And it just sort of was like,
Things
it
just
just
kind of fell
worked
into
out.
place, it
Yeah.
sounds like. Yeah, it was kind of meant to be your path.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we did participatory based research project on HIV stigma in positive and negative MSM along the I-5 corridor.
Mm.
We were going to write it into a journal. It never got published, but I worked on it. So that was
That's very
cool.
cool.
And then after that, I worked at the DOH, the Department of Health for Washington State, as the community planning coordinator for the state. So I helped with the integrated plan and
Mm.
ran the HPSG, the HIV Planning Steering Group. That doesn't
Mhm.
exist anymore. It's something else. Um, and then I worked there for a few years. I had met the guy that worked at Gilead and was the community liaison, what I do now. And I pulled him aside one day and I was like, if you ever get a promotion, quit your job, die, whatever, call me
Yeah.
because I think I want to do what you do. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, but I knew that moving from CFAR to the DOH pulled me out of community. And I really wanted to get back into community because that's just where my life is. And so this job affords me an opportunity to talk to patients. It affords like the wild ladies, right? It affords me an opportunity to talk to people, to bring people together, to help link people to care, to help make sure that the right people are on PrEP, to make sure that anyone who wants PrEP can get on it. I do a lot of like right now last year and this year I have started doing evening classes at community centers in Tacoma and King County for teens
Oh.
and talking to them about my story and how I contracted HIV, which we can also get into if you want to. But like telling my story, but also talking about like PrEP and what it is and PEP and that it's available. And we had a situation after I had done one of my educational things with them. One of the boys that had been there had had a sexual interaction and knew that he could go ask for PEP.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so he went to this nurse, they went to the ER and the ER doc was like, you don't really need it. It was only one time. You're not really at risk. And I want to build advocates in the community that can say, no, I'm asking for this because I want it.
Yeah.
This is really important for me. And teaching people, like providers, this is what I need and this is what I want you to give me, right?
Yeah, that's so important to have that, be able to speak about it and yeah.
Absolutely. And I want people like who are living with HIV. And we were just talking about this at WOW. I think it's so important for people, anyone, whether you're living with HIV or not, to be an advocate for your own healthcare wherever you are. Like, I just had a recent experience where I went to the doctor and she disregarded everything that I had gone to ask her about. And then at the end was like, and if you need help with your weight, just know that we're here to help you. And I was like, I'm not even here for that. Like, I live in a big body, but I'm also a power lifter. And,
Yeah.
I lift weights and I work out and I know that I live in a big body, but and my BMI is high, but BMI is really a BS number, to be quite honest. And like I we as a society need to be able to advocate for our own healthcare because who knows our body best?
Exactly.
Us,
Yeah.
right? And so like I just think it's so important to give people back their power because I think a lot of times we get into situations with healthcare providers sometimes who don't listen or won't listen. And we have to be able to say, just wait a second.
Right.
I need you to hear me so that we can get to the bottom of what's going on. Yeah. And it's okay to, and even one of the ladies today said, what do you do if your provider doesn't listen to you? And I said, you can fire your provider. They are giving you a service.
Right.
Yeah, I think in society we really put like it's kind of the what do they call it? It's like the white tower effect or something,
Mm-hmm.
where like providers are in this big tower that we're
Mm-hmm.
not able to reach. And at the end of the day, they all poop too, right?
Yeah,
Like
totally. We're all
like,
we're all human.
we're all human. And yes, they went and they may have a little bit more knowledge, but we need to take it upon ourselves to have the knowledge that we need about our own diseases so we can be like, hey,
Right.
like maybe, but also this is my experience. And so
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about that,
Yeah.
you know?
Like it might be something more or different, Totally.
Absolutely. So
And
anyway, that
yeah,
was
no,
really
I
like a
love that.
long,
And yeah, I love being at Quest because I do feel like our providers do their best to really hear our participants and make sure that they feel like they're being told what's happening in their care too.
hmm
Not just like, here, do this. I'm not going to take the time to explain what or why, like,
Oh yeah,
here's the why.
absolutely. Well, and
Yeah.
I think with naturopathy
Mm-hmm.
and like acupuncture and sort of, Eastern medicine
Mm-hmm.
and the things that happen at Quest, I sought out naturopathy because I was really tired of being looking like I had a script pad on my forehead that all they
Mm.
were going to do was going to like give me medicine,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to take pills. I have to take a pill every day because I have HIV, but I don't want to take a statin and a beta blocker and a diabetes medication. Like I don't,
Right.
my mother takes handfuls of pills. God bless you, Mom. I love you. But,
Oh.
she takes handfuls of pills and I don't want to get to that spot. And so
Mm-hmm.
what can I do to talk with a provider like a naturopath or like someone that will help me with Chinese or Eastern medicine that will not interact with my HIV medication. That's very important. But at the same time, will sit and listen to me about something. And I think in Western medicine, we're so bound by insurance companies and timeframes. And the first time I ever went to my naturopath in Chehalis, she spent an hour and a half with me. I mean, we
Yeah.
went over everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, you're having an upset stomach. Well, like, of course you are. You have HIV. You're taking these medications. Like, you need to be eating probiotics. You need to be, eating sauerkraut and fermented food and, all of these things that if I had gone to Western medicine, they would have been like, here's some Pepsid. Good luck.
Right.
And so, and it's the reason behind, I'm very much a person of like, what's the why?
Yeah, instead of the band-aid, it's like, let's dig into this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like let's do it at a cellular level instead
Mm-hmm.
of just like, well, here's a script for this, like go pick it up.
Right. Yeah.
So, and is it more expensive? Maybe because a lot of insurances don't cover naturopathy,
Sure.
but in the long run, you're actually doing something, in my opinion, that's
Mm-hmm.
better for your body and maybe
Yeah.
better for your mental health because you're
Yeah.
not being seen as a number.
Yeah, and maybe getting you closer to not having to take a pill every day or what have you.
Totally.
Yeah.
My mom's real funny. She's like, "Oh, is this person a real doctor or are they a naturopath?" And I'm like, Naturopaths are real doctors.
Yeah.
So they just do things a little differently." But,
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, I really, naturopathic medicine, I love. But
Same. I had the pleasure of interviewing our naturopath on staff here, and I was just kind of blown away by all of her knowledge and just, you know, recommendations. So,
totally.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about some of your maybe misconceptions or your understanding of HIV before you were diagnosed?
Sure. You know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? I
Mm-hmm.
remember when Ryan White came out with his mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And said that he had HIV. And I remember getting mail from the Surgeon General that like there was this, the gay cancer and
Mm-hmm.
everybody had to be afraid. And I think a lot of my teen years and early like sexual experiences were masked by, oh my God, this is so scary. This is not something that I want to get because I'm going to die, right? And I think with a lot of folks after high school, you don't get, unless you're in public health, you're not getting updates on what's happening with things.
Right.
So when I went to Africa, I was still under the impression of like, oh, well, people who get HIV die or
Mm-hmm.
they get AIDS and they die.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not as clued in to what happens with folks with
Mm-hmm.
HIV. And the year that I went to Peace Corps was 2012, and that was the year that PrEP came out.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and so, it's interesting because we in Peace Corps we had training for a week before we went to homestays. And then we had 2 months of training and then they swear you in. It's very cool, but it's a very odd. I'm reliving it because I'm writing it. Anyway, but we watched this video and it was like 25 years old. But people had like Laura Ashley dresses on and stuff. But they were like, I got HIV and Peace Corps and like this is my life and blah blah blah. And so it was almost a scared straight kind of thing. And I had a friend before I left for Peace Corps and she was like, girl, there's HIV all over Africa. Like you got to be careful. And I'm like, girl, I've gone longer than 2 years without having sex. Like it's fine. And then I got to Africa and I was like, oh, like this is a big girl's dream, right? Like they love big girls. Um, so I lived my best life in Africa, um, safely, right? Because I think it was in Peace Corps in South Africa. I think they're actually closing down Peace Corps South Africa, to be quite honest. But they have an education group that comes in July and they have a health group that comes in January. And so there's just this rotation of constant people coming into the country.
Yeah.
And so they did an HIV talk with us. And I don't remember in there them saying like it's a a communicable disease and there's medicine for it. Like I don't remember that part, but I do remember them saying like just be careful. HIV rates are really high in South Africa. Make sure that you use a condom. They made us do this condom demonstration.
Really?
So there's like 46 of
The
us.
old banana.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. It was like conversations about condoms.
Oh,
So
okay.
I got paired up with this guy who had a girlfriend back home. And I was like, I'm not going to use his name, Greg, I know that you're ready to have sex, but I really need to use a condom. And he's like, great. And I'm like, awesome. That was the easiest conversation ever. But, I mean, I think in my experience looking back, like everybody that I did have relations with, we used a condom, right? So it was like, but it was also we were getting tested often and we had the ability to go to private doctors and make sure that we were taken care of and in Peace Corps they were like this is the best medical care that you're ever going to have and I was like okay like sure um but I didn't know about medicines for HIV. I didn't know that you could take medicines and get to undetectable. I mean, undetectable came out in what, 2015? So there was a lot of misconceptions that I had, and I think that that is probably part of our societal moral failing of not continuing health education with people after high school. And really, in high school, are kids getting the health information that they need? Or are they just getting the same rote health information that we've had forever? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yes, of course, I'm sure that it's updated. I don't know, I haven't been in high school in 30 years, but I think that, we're not in a place, unless you are completely clued in with public health, you're not in a place to get that updated information. So when I did end up HIV positive, they were like, well, there is medicine that you can take, but we can't give it to you. And the reason they couldn't give it to me was because I was leaving the country in 2 days.
Okay.
And so they were like, there's no way for us to monitor you. So you're going to have to call and make an appointment with your PCP at home, which I did. And then when I went to my PCP, she said, I don't know anything about HIV. I can't help you. And then I was distraught.
Yeah.
And she said, you're going to have to go to an ID doc across town. And so I ended up going to this other clinic, but it was sort of like, it's a great clinic and they have amazing doctors, but I felt it's kind of like a free clinic. So I kind of felt a little dodgy. I was like, I don't know that I belong here. So I sort of felt out of place, but I was really wrapped around with, the nurse on staff and the program manager. And like they were just fantastic. They got me into case management right away.
Wow.
Um, and then after I got into case management, my case manager was like, we'll help you with everything. Do you need a bus pass? Do you need this? Do you need food? And I'm like, I have a car. I live with my folks. Like, I'm good.. I'm just like sobbing. And he was like, well, once your bill, like they got me on state insurance because I didn't have insurance. And he said, like, once your bills start rolling in, just we can help you and help you call creditors and all of that and give them. And I was like, okay. And bills started rolling in. So I brought him a stack of bills and I put him on his table and he was like, but you just need to call them. Like he was definitely trying to get me to own,
Sure.
right, to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, you're not going to do this for me? I guess okay. And so I just kind of pulled myself up by my bootstraps
Mm.
and took care of it. I think that that first year, for about the first 9 months, I was pretty catatonic. I didn't really have highs and lows. I was just not able to really laugh at anything. And I was just kind of going through the motions.
And were you having physical symptoms with anything or no?
No, they put me on meds right away when I got
Okay.
into the doctor. They told me about U equals U,
Mhm.
which had just come out. And she's like, it's new science, but we'll get you to undetectable and you'll be fine. They started me on Stribild of all things. And then a few months later, they switched me to Jimvoya, which was great. And then I have subsequently switched to Biktarvy, not because I work for Gilead, but because I switched, I wanted a smaller pill. Um, but that I finally ended up reaching out to someone who we were introduced to in Peace Corps who had been living with HIV for like 35 years. He was one of the first people in South Africa to get HIV. He was one of the first people from the United States to send meds to South Africa illegally to get people in South Africa to get meds for
Wow.
HIV. Like he was amazing. His name was David Patient. He ended up passing away not from HIV, from something else. He had a ton of other things wrong. But David said, "Oh, you're in Seattle? I know people in Seattle." And he hooked me up with two people. I reached out to them. I was like, "I'm newly diagnosed. I really need help." And those people hooked me up with community. And the thing about HIV that HIV has taught me is the community is fantastic. We really stick together. Anybody that has HIV, even if I don't know them, is part of my family. So, I met someone yesterday in a healthcare provider's office here in Portland, and he was like, I have HIV, and I'm like, so do I. I'm like,
Aw.
you're part of my
Yeah.
family, and we talked for like 5 minutes, and he was like, I'm gonna hug you. We're family now.
That's so
So
sweet. That's
yeah.
very cool.
So I think I went to a retreat, an HIV retreat. It was for positive and negative folks who had dealt and been through the HIV epidemic in San Francisco. And this was in like 2017, I think. And I went with a friend of mine who's also positive. And we broke up into different groups. And I was with this group of people that I didn't know. And they were like, okay, we're going to write a letter to HIV and talk about all of the things that HIV took away from us. And for me, I sat there for a while and I was like, the only thing that HIV has taken away from me is the fact that I can't tell people that I'm HIV negative. Like this diagnosis has given me a career, a passion, a community, a purpose. Like I know what my job is now. And that's why I say I left Africa with the love of my life because I don't think I could ever do anything other than be an advocate for people living with HIV. And that's why I do what I do.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me emotional.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can cry. It's okay.
Yeah, tell me more about how community has played a role in your healing journey.
Oh, I think HIV is a very lonely diagnosis because you think that you're the only one, right? Um, and I felt very, very alone until I found Babes in Seattle, which is like wow here.
Okay, yeah.
They're an HIV positive women's group.
Nice.
They are peer led, so it's led by other people living with HIV. They had the one year that I met up with them, they had a retreat. And I pulled up to the retreat and I was like, I don't belong here. Nobody looks like me. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I put my car in reverse, looked in the rearview mirror, and I saw this lady who looked just like me. And I was like, all right, if she's here, I can do this. And I ended up staying, and it was life-changing because when you carry around something that carries so much shame or stigma that you think, right? Because I think there's external stigma and there's internal stigma, right? And I didn't know enough about other people having this to think I'm fine, everything's fine. I just have to take a pill every day and go about my life, right? So it was very traumatic, and I had a lot of baggage from my previous relationship. I still do. I
Yeah.
still have trust issues with men. That I don't know if that'll ever go away, but thank you, therapy.
Yes.
But I also think, like, had I not been able to be in that group of women, it was all women and trans women, I believe. And it was like 40 of us for a weekend on Vashon Island.
That's so fun.
It was so fun. And we like did crafts, and they had massage, and they had acupuncture, and they had healing rooms, and you could go canoe, and yeah, like it was super cool. Um, and they fed us, and we had a party one night we were dancing. There was no alcohol, people, no alcohol. But we were dancing and singing karaoke, and like
cool.
I think there's a thing that happens when you have a chronic illness, that when you're around people that have the same thing, you're not thinking about your chronic illness anymore. It allows you to just kind of be yourself. And that was something that I needed so badly then, because all I did was think about HIV, 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 and how is this going to change my life? And so from that, I was able to share with them and start going to like support groups, right? Support groups are so important for people living with HIV. And as much as COVID changed the landscape of everything that has to do with support groups and things like that, I think it's really important for people to be in person in support groups, because we all know what Zoom is now. We all know what Teams are, right? Um, and that can still be really lonely because you're not physically touching someone.
Right.
And there's something about having HIV and physical touch that is just next level. And especially when you're first newly diagnosed, like you want those hugs because you don't want to feel othered, right?
Totally.
And it feels like, oh my God, this person is okay touching me. And that fades over time. And I think now, 10 years in, this is more of like, I just have to take a pill every day and I'm fine. I just go about my life. But I think too, with having HIV for so long, now I'm worried. One of the women was just talking about this, and wow, she said, I don't even think about my HIV anymore. She's like, I've been diagnosed for 40 years. I think about macular degeneration and, like heart disease, and
Sure.
my joints hurt and this hurts. Like, I
Other
think,
things to worry about.
yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning, it's kind of like a car crash. It's like such a jolt to your system. And after a car crash, like you don't do anything for like 3 or 4 days because you're kind of like, what? Like your whole life kind of gets upended. With an HIV diagnosis, that happened to me for like 2 years. And, how do you come out to people? How do you disclose to people? I think this has made me closer to the LGBTQ community because I think I can identify with coming out to people, and disclosure. Um, but I think, I don't remember the basis of the question, but I think community.
This is great conversation.
I think community is so important, and I've never seen such an importance in community as I have living with HIV.
Yeah, what was some of you said internal stigma versus external. So I
Yeah,
want to hear more about that and what that means for you, that difference. Or
totally.
about like, yeah, what have you faced in coming out to people about
You
your
know,
diagnosis?
So let's start internally. So when I first was diagnosed, the three things that went through my head immediately were, well, no one's ever going to love me again. My dating life is over, and I'll literally never date again. Like that's done. And I believed that to my core for like 5 years. I mean, it was a long time. And I tried to date, and I tried to, well, girl, the dating pool right now, there's poop in the
It's rough.
pool, okay? Um, so that's a whole nother thing.
Yes.
But internally I was like, I had this whole mantra of like, I'm damaged goods, no one's gonna want me. And then I ended up finding this woman online who had also contracted HIV in Peace Corps, and she had gotten married and had a baby. And I was like, oh, a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
right? And so you start seeing and hearing other people's stories. I think that's really good for community too, is listening to other people's stories.
Yeah, seeing how other people are living and thriving.
Well, and how are you, what? Like you're
Yeah.
married and have two children and like they're negative and that's amazing and
Mm-hmm.
tell me more and how did you find this person and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing, right? So I think over time, I was really scared because I had internal stigma. I was really scared of how people were going to externally react to
Mm-hmm.
me. And it was this touch and go kind of disclosure of like, this feels safe, or I'm not really sure about this, but I guess I'll try and see what happens. And it moved more now. This is actually kind of a funny story. Now, last week, I walked into this there's a new romantic bookstore in
Okay.
Olympia, Washington.
Oh, okay. There's a new one here in Portland too.
Oh, well, I have to go there too.
Yes.
But she was like, "Oh, we just opened and we're going to have classes and we're going to have healthy sex classes." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's actually what I do for work."
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Really? Tell me." And so I told her, like, this is what I do and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I've been living with HIV for 10 years. And she's like, "Oh, amazing." And it just came out.
Yeah.
And I have a friend, his name is Michael Luella. He lives in Washington State. And I worked with him at the CFAR. And he said, there will come a day that it'll just flow out of you
Uh-huh.
and you won't even think about whether or not like it was stigmatizing.
Right.
Like it'll just happen. And I was like, yeah, right. That'll never happen to me. And it did.
It did.
I remember it happened and I called him and I was like, it happened. I didn't even think about it. I just said it. And that wasn't last week. That was like years ago.
Yeah.
But it was just amazing. Like there's sort of this trajectory of like, it's sort of like building strength over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're first newly diagnosed, that trauma is so difficult that it's so hard to see the other side of it. But time heal, it's cliche to say, but time heals all wounds, right? And yes, there's still things that we are constantly working on because we're human,
Uh-huh.
but like it's easier. And
Yeah.
like, like the old LGBTQ thing, it gets better. I think
Mm-hmm.
that can be true for a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Like it's I don't have as much internal stigma anymore, so I'm less concerned about the external stigma that I might receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I have received stuff like, oh God, I would never want to touch someone living with HIV, it's like,
Wow.
well, wait a second.
Like,
Talk to me
yeah,
about
like,
that.
let me understand why you think that.
And most of the time, I'm met with external stigma before people know that I'm positive.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So like I was living in an apartment complex and the woman came over I was sick at home and I was watching something on TV having to do with HIV and the
Mm-hmm.
woman came over to fix my something in my kitchen. And I was like, "Look, I know this guy. Like he's a researcher at the CFAR where I used to work." And she was like, "Oh my God, that's so crazy about HIV. I could never be around anyone living with HIV."
Like,
And in my
well, you
mind I was
are
like,
right
"Well,"
now.
and I didn't have the wherewithal to say anything to her because I've
Mm-hmm.
heard about people getting evicted because of their status and all of this stuff. So I didn't say anything to her, but if she sees this now, hi. Um, I think like now I would say something like, well, I have HIV. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid anymore, where I used to really be afraid of what people were going to think. And I think it's just resilience, strength over time, and repetitive action. I chose for a long time safe spaces for me to disclose. And then I got riskier and riskier to the
Mm-hmm.
place where now I'm like, listen. And I think my community has helped me with this, right? They're like, if you're going to disclose to someone and they're going to have an issue with it, that's not your person and they
Totally.
don't deserve your time. And I think for me, I'm a very loving, accepting person, but I'm also not going to accept disrespect.
No, yeah. And I feel like a lot of it is probably coming from some deep misunderstanding too. Not that that's your responsibility at all to help them understand, but I feel like, you know, maybe some of that misunderstanding is coming in there.
Absolutely. Well, and I
Yeah.
think it's one of the wild ladies said it was ignorance, and I agree
Yeah,
with that, right? It's
ignorance.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and some people don't know that they're ignorant about it, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
that they're just not knowing. Because I too was the same way, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh God, my life is over now that I have HIV.
Mm-hmm.
No, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think it's we don't have a constant education loop to keep people in the loop of everything. And our, with social media and the 24-hour news cycle and all of these things that are happening, we can't retain all of this information. And so, am I giving people who don't understand HIV a pass? Maybe a little bit, but I think if you're not in it, how are you supposed to know about it? Unless you go to a talk or a class or one of these things. And I think one of the big messages is like PrEP is for everyone and HIV does not discriminate. So like it's not that just people who have risky sex get HIV. It's not just people who are, intravenous drug users get HIV. Not people who just have like quote unquote dirty sex, like whatever that means. It's not that. Like this can literally happen to anyone. And like protect yourself, right? PrEP is available. It's there. It's there for anyone. Um,
Can you talk a little bit about how it works for someone who would have no understanding of PrEP?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would go into your doctor. So I think this is my personal opinion, and none of this is my company sanctioned. So this is totally me only, not my company. And I want to say that because I don't want to get in trouble. But I think, if you're interested in PrEP and that's an option for you, you can go into your doctor's office, urgent care, ask for a full STI panel. People, even if you're having sex, you should be getting tested every 3 to 6 months or whenever you change a partner. And you can go in and ask for a PrEP. What'll happen is they'll give you the full STI panel. They will do probably an HIV rapid test and do a blood draw, because a blood draw tests for syphilis, but it also tests for HIV. And the HIV rapid test can tell you up to 10 days ago if you've been exposed to HIV. If that comes back negative, they will talk to you about PrEP options. There are daily oral pill options. There's a 2-month injectable and a 6-month injectable PrEP. So, and then they talk to you sort of about safety, efficacy, risks, things like that. And then you get to choose the type that you want to be on. And then you start taking your PrEP. If you have a penis and you're on daily oral medication, you're fully covered after 7 days. If you have a vagina and you're on a daily oral option, it takes 21 days to be fully covered. So you want to be real careful in those 21 days. I don't know about the 2-month injectable PrEP, how long it takes to be fully active in the body. With the 6-month injectable PrEP, there's a dual loading dose the first day, 2 injections subcutaneous in the belly or the thigh, and then a loading dose the second day. After your loading dose the second day, it's 2 to 4 hours and you're fully covered. So, and then you want to come in every 3 months to be tested again, full panel and HIV test, and get re-upped for your PrEP every 3 months, or if you have the injectable option, every 2 months or 6, depending on that. So,
and then for someone who doesn't know what U equals U means, how would you describe that?
Okay, so U equals U is undetectable equals untransmittable. So, as someone living with HIV, I take a daily medication every day to get the viral load in my body to less than 20 or basically 0. It doesn't mean that I am HIV free. It just means that what the medicine does is it makes the virus go dormant in my body so that it's not using my CD4 cells as HIV factories, because that's what HIV does. It goes into the body, it attacks the CD4, and the CD4 is your immune system, and it changes the mechanism of the CD4 cell to make it an HIV factory, and it pumps out HIV. And so that's how HIV takes over the body. So with the medication, it shuts down those factories so that the CD4 cells can continue to replicate and I can have an immune system. But once we get to undetectable, we can't transmit the virus from one person to another. So I'm too old to have babies. Well, I'm not too old to have babies now, but in my mind, I'm too old to have babies now. But if I wanted to have children, I can be on my medication and have unprotected sex with my husband or a person with a penis, and they would not contract HIV from me, but I would be able to have a baby and my baby could be negative. So I mean, that's really huge for people who want to start families.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and HIV or U equals U is also sometimes known as treatment as prevention.
Hmm.
So that's part of a prevention method that we use to suppress the virus in our body so that we're not, going out and transmitting HIV to other folks,
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
if that helps.
It definitely
Yeah.
helps. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you feel like a hopeful future looks like for the HIV community?
Well, I hope that we can get more people on PrEP so we don't
Hmm.
continue to have people showing up with HIV. It really is traumatic to end up with an HIV diagnosis, so I'd love to see more people on PrEP just
Hmm.
because that seems to be the easiest prevention method is to get on PrEP.
Right.
I'd love to see a cure in my lifetime. I know that there are folks working on it. It's really difficult to cure HIV because it's so easy to mutate. That it's a virus, so viruses mutate over time. And if it's not undetectable, it continues to mutate and grow. So there are hundreds of thousands of different strains of HIV. And so it's really hard to find a way to kill it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there are people that have been cured. Timothy Ray Brown has been cured. I met him actually.
Yeah.
He ended up passing away a few years ago too. But there are a few other people who have been cured, but it's not a massive cure. You can't, what they do is they do a bone marrow transplant.
Okay.
And they transplant the bone marrow of someone who has a CCR5 gene into the person with HIV, which is really cost prohibitive. It's really invasive to the body and
Hmm.
it's pretty painful. And it doesn't, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but from
Sure.
my experience, like it sometimes, I don't know, it's just very painful,
Yeah.
right? So it's not something that everyone can do. And so we look at treatment as prevention or medication as a functional cure.
Hmm.
But really, if you're being reminded every day by taking a pill or being reminded that you have to go in and get an injection for medication, it's not really cured.
Hmm.
It's yes, you are undetectable, but you're not cured. So we're working on it. Pharmaceutical companies are working on it. Researchers are working on it. Um, I hope that we're there soon. Um, my dad said, "You really want to work in HIV? Like, aren't they near a cure for that? Like, what if they cure it?" And I said, "Then I've worked myself out of a job. Like, that's the best thing you can do in
Yeah.
public health, you know?"
Yeah.
But I think, I really want, we have all the tools to end the HIV epidemic.
Hmm.
We just have to use them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we see rates rise in cisgender Black women
Hmm.
or cisgender men, cisgender Black men or Black and brown people, so I think, and women, like we tend
Hmm.
to see a lot of folks are like, oh, well, that's the gay disease.
Hmm.
But we're seeing rates go up in heterosexual communities. So getting the word out there, making sure that people are educated, making sure that we can get folks the resources that they need, especially in the kind of political climate where we are right now, where HIV funding is being cut and prevention fundings are being cut, and
Hmm.
you know, really rallying around the HIV community. And maybe we need to go back up to ACT UP days, like if we need to riot in the streets if we can't get what we need,
Right. Yeah.
So
Do you think part of the rates rising in cis women, heterosexual women has anything to do with them thinking, oh, this doesn't apply to me?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, well, that I actually was told by a gynecologist in the 90s. I went
Uh-huh.
in for a pap smear and she said, "Do you want an HIV test?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love an HIV test." And she said, "Well, I can give it to you, but you don't really fit the demographic." And I'm here to tell you, everyone, HIV does not have a demographic.
Mm-hmm.
It can affect anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think too, I think there are a lot of women that are like, well, I don't want to be on that because I don't want my partner to think that I don't trust them.
Mm.
And I want to change that narrative of it's not about trust. I trust you fine, but I'm taking a step for my sexual health that will protect me. And that's regardless of what we're doing. We're monogamous, that's great, but I'm taking this step to protect me just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? I was also in a monogamous relationship that I thought was monogamous. But was gaslit into thinking that it was monogamous, cheated on, lied to, and here I am. So I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman with a master's degree who is sitting in front of you with HIV, and you'd never know it, but I was the, well, that could never happen to me, gal, and here I am. So, it's more about getting the word out there for everybody, making sure that everyone is educated about it. And, we can all do our part to end the HIV epidemic. We just have to believe that we can and want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think the other part to this is we really need to continue to destigmatize HIV. Like, it's just a chronic illness. I actually had a doctor tell me once she said, if I had a choice of choosing HIV or diabetes, I would choose HIV because it's more easy to control.
Hmm.
Because diabetes, you control it with insulin, but you also control it with food, and it sort of messes with like what you eat and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Whereas with HIV, you take a med and you're good.
Yeah.
You
There you
know?
go.
It's not as difficult, I think, for providers anymore. It used to be really difficult with like different strains and different modalities and different medications and things like that. Like we've made it very easy to manage HIV. So like I think providers shouldn't be scared of HIV either. Like
Okay.
had my PCP been like, I got you, girl.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I think I would have had a better outlook
Yeah.
than, oh God, I have to go to another doctor.
Yeah. I also think you sharing that it came to you in this way of finding out you were lied to and cheated on. I mean, I'm sure that is traumatic as well to
Mm-hmm.
just feel like, oh, so
Totally.
I've been lied to, and now I'm dealing with the pieces of that.
The other part of that is the day that I was diagnosed, I called him because we
Mhm.
were still together.
Okay.
I had left that village, right? But we were still whatever together, as boyfriend and girlfriend. And I called him and I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I've tested positive for HIV." And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." And I said, "Yeah, well, you are the only person that I've been with for the last 18 months, so I think that you should get tested."
Yeah.
And he said, "Nope, you know how I feel about testing. I'm not going to do that. I'm sure that you didn't get it from me. You must have cheated on me."
Oh, so just putting it right back on you.
Yep. And I
Wow.
said, "Well, I know who I've had sex with in the last 18 months, and you were the only person." And he was like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to believe it, and I'm not going to get tested." And then I stayed with him for 2 more months. I know.
Hey, happens to the best of
Oh,
us.
gals, don't do that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, I think has it been a really terrible thing that's happened to me in my life? Sure. Has it made my life better? Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I really want to see the forest for the trees. Like like I said, it's given me so many things
Yeah.
that I don't know where I would be today without this. So for a long time, I didn't even get angry with the person that I received this beautiful gift from. Um, and I ended up getting angry about last year. I mean, it took me like the 9 or 10 years to get
Yeah.
angry, but I think I had a lot of like, I should have known better. I should have done this. I should have. And hindsight's 2020. But really, like, it was a gift. And it was a really odd gift, but
For
it's
sure.
turned my life around,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't know what I would do if I had come home when I was supposed to end Peace Corps
Mhm.
because I would not have HIV.
Okay.
So, and I was in a position to be teaching, but I was sort of, I don't know about teaching. Like I really was sort of like scattered. I didn't know what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. And now I've got this drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Do you feel like having that anger helped you release that? Or I don't know, is that still something you work through?
I'm still pretty mad.
Yeah, fair.
Um, for someone who's not going to take accountability, who's not going to be
Yeah.
on meds, who's not going to do these things, like I'm like,
And
it
continue to
what
harm others.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what's the repercussions? And I'm sad that there are other people being affected by this when I couldn't be able to stop it. And
Mhm.
and I take a lot of responsibility for that. And I know that I probably shouldn't, but
Mhm.
that's just the kind of person that I am, right?
Mhm.
Like I want to help people and but I think there's a lot of anger there, right? There's still a
Yeah.
lot of like, why did this happen to me? But at the same time, I wouldn't be in the place that I am if it didn't.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's
I kind of
multifaceted for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a catch 22 kind of. It's
Yeah.
like it's not damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's sort of like
Right.
it's terrible that it happened, but great with the outcome. And like I own a home and I like have a wonderful career and like I'm doing great.
Yeah.
And that's not everybody's story,
Sure.
but I think I've just sheer will and just pissed offness has made me like I said once when I first got diagnosed, I was like, I want to make HIV my bitch. And I think I have.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of it. It's not all one or the other. It's not black and white. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing those feelings because
Totally.
it's real.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who just got diagnosed? Or what advice would you give someone?
Find a support group, get into care, stay on your meds, don't miss meds, and it'll get easier. But it just takes time.
Yeah.
I think, I know that in Oregon, mental health and behavioral health is really difficult to come by. I think it's really important that Quest has behavioral health here. And I think therapy has helped me immensely. But you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
And there is sunshine. It seems like a storm and a thunderstorm right now, but there is sunshine coming. You just have to be patient and work through it. And I think, every day is this journey and a struggle. But some days are brighter than others and it will get easier.
A little rainbow at the end of the storm.
Totally.
Nice.
Maybe a leprechaun.
Ooh, that would be fun. A little pot of gold.
Yeah. I like a short king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing your story and your thoughts. It's really nice to have your perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I'd love to come back if you'll have me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask you or anything else that you
I
want to
don't think
close
so.
on?
This is really great because I did another podcast earlier last year and it was my entire story. So you can hear that somewhere else. And I thought, like, oh, is this going to be my story again? Because that's a little old and dated.
Right.
But I loved this because it was sort of organic and took a different
Yeah.
way with it. So that was
Well,
great.
and because you have such a, broad perspective, it's not just like, oh, I'm living with HIV. You've also worked in it and you've worked in the policy side of things and, the care side. So I really appreciate having your perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time. This
Yeah.
has been great.
Thank you. Testing, 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 testing.